So for my background, I was formerly a government advisor in the UK government, both at the Department of Energy Security and Net Zero and at number 10 Downing Street, advising the Prime Minister's Office on energy security. And I'm now a fellow at the University of Cambridge Centre for Science and Policy. So I spend a lot of time thinking about what is the role of government in driving the energy transition. And for me, there are two things that really come out in this. One is that government is crucial. Like you cannot, and we have not seen any major energy or technology transition without government leading the way, and energy will be no different. If anything, it will be more important because energy is national security, it's national economy, not just products like any other. And the second thing is that every country has very specific challenges, and therefore the challenges of government will look different depending what country you're in. And so with some of those themes, I'd like to turn to our kind of distinguished panel, who I'm not going to introduce individually, but will introduce themselves when they answer their first question. And the first question I'd like to put out there is, what is the role of government? What can government do that industry or markets can't? And maybe telling us a little bit about how that works in your specific country or the geographies that you work in.
I am Krystal Oriadha. I have the pleasure of serving as the Vice Chair of Prince George's County Council. So those that maybe aren't familiar with the U.S., and live in Maryland, and it's just like the City Council here for London. We have about 1 million people in my county, and I represent a part of the community that we consider inside the Beltway. So it looks at parts of the community that tends to be marginalized and has a lot of disparities compared to other parts of the jurisdiction. That's what I represent. And for that question, I feel like we as politicians, because I'm an elected official, I feel like we have a couple of responsibilities. One, I think we have to be visionaries. We have to look to the future beyond what exists. And then more importantly, we have to be the arm of accountability. Because a lot of times we have standards, but there's no accountability. And I look at us as the watchdogs. It's one of the reasons I feel like we haven't really seen the energy sustainability conversation where it could be, is because governments haven't done that part of their job. They might pass the law, they might have the vision, they might talk about all of the amazing things that can be the future, but when it comes to accountability, they lack that because there's too much money in politics, right? We have a lot of special interests that fund political campaigns, and allows that barrier for us to do probably the most important job that we have, is to make sure that the policies that we pass, we hold industries accountable for them.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Macenje Mazoka. I'm Zambia's High Commissioner to the United Kingdom, representing my country, in addition to also servicing Ireland and the Holy See. Those are the other areas of jurisdiction. Thank you for the question. And first of all, it's a pleasure to be here to discuss this really critical issue. Maybe a little bit about Zambia, perhaps the quandary that we just came out of. Zambia, we were about, I'll say, 85-90% green energy efficient. We had hydro as our primary source of energy. And then last year came a drought. A major drought. And it didn't just affect Zambia, but it also affected our region, several countries within Southern Africa. And then, of course, that just extremely negatively impacted our energy source. So we hit rock bottom from an energy supply standpoint. Of course, that negatively affects the economy, businesses, schools. So the president and the country, we had to look at now, how do we really try and make a quick pivot when we're dealing with a existential crisis. So you have to look at how can you quickly pivot from a policy perspective to create an enabling environment for businesses to come in and help pick up the slack where sometimes government may not. Because we were so heavily reliant upon hydro, we didn't have that diversification of energy sources. So how do you build solar systems overnight? How do you build turbines overnight? It does not happen overnight. So in order to try and fast track that, what the government did is to create, again, policies and new areas, particularly within the energy sector, that can help help facilitate a quick entry of the private sector to come in. And the president called for a solar explosion. So that was kind of the mantra. We need a solar explosion. So however we could get in more service providers and or businesses or investors who wanted to come in to help and deliver solar fields, that whole process was made easier. So that's it just for the moment. There's a lot more.
Thank you, everyone, for organising today. My name's Kate Wills. I work for the Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet. We were set up in fact, it's today, I think, might be our 4th birthday. God, it just occurred to me. We were set up at COP26 in Glasgow by the Rockefeller Foundation, by IKEA Foundation and Bezos Earth Fund. And our mission is fundamentally to accelerate renewable energy deployment across emerging and developing markets. Or, if you like, to make sure that everybody, everywhere, even in the sort of hardest to reach places, has access to. But actually, the majority of our work has been in Africa. So in the last 3 to 4 years, we have deployed 137 projects in over 30 countries. We've deployed nearly $500 million in grants, thanks to all our philanthropic funders and our partners. I should say critically, I say us, we're actually an alliance of 55 organisations spanning governments, spanning private sector, spanning philanthropy, and that we really see that as our sort of the bit that we add value in the most. Our CEO, if he were here, Wu Chung, he would like to say that he liked to play the midfield role when he was a football player.
Thank you, Sulaiman, and thank you, Joy, and the team for organizing this event, for inviting me. In terms of background, I was a few years Minister of Industry, Energy, Mining, Renewable Energy, and SMEs. It's a long title. I merged 2 ministries together, but renewable energy was one of the portfolios in there. And then a few months ago, I came back from Djibouti, where I was based to run their sovereign wealth fund. So there was it's one of those things. Also, sovereign wealth funds and capital like that makes a difference. In Tunisia, as minister, prior to that, I was in the investment world. So that's what I've done for the bulk of my career here in London, out of London, managing international investment funds, with some of it going to Africa, multi-sectors. But in Tunisia, I was happy to see someone from the EBRD here earlier in the previous panel, and want the next discussion.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone. That was really brought to life some of the challenges and some of the successes as well that we're seeing across the African continent and elsewhere. One follow-up question, which I think touches on some of the points raised by Your Excellency Macenje, and also you, Slim, as well, around that. Your Excellency, Slim. Is this balance between, at the one hand, government is having to deal with crises when they arise, but on the other hand, the real success stories we've seen are also when government's able to set a clear policy framework in the long term. And so a question for whoever wants to answer it, how do you in government balance this need to kind of deal with the crises that emerge day to day, but also give investors enough confidence?
Yeah, I'll do it from my perspective as sitting in the seat as an elected official. It's probably the biggest issue that we have, right? Because currently right now, a lot of people know in the U.S. we have the government shutdown, right? So we have people right now that don't have jobs, that some have to go to work and don't get paid, right? But then we also have long-term issues that we have to deal with. So you have all of these issues hitting you at once, and people want their bread and butter issues taken care of. And for some people, when you talk about energy and environmental sustainability, that's like 10 years down the list, right? They want to talk about their wages right now. They want to talk about how they don't have grocery stores in their community. They want to talk about access to health care. They want to talk about the basic things. And so if you're talking over here, you can lose a lot of your constituents because they're going to tell you, yeah, that sounds good, right? But you're going to close this factory because it's not environmentally, sound, but that's how our whole...
I think what we need is, in instances like that, is it boils down to visionary leadership. So you have to have visionary leadership that is multi-pronged. So the thinking of the leader has to be multi-pronged, because yes, you have to plug the holes, but you still also have to parallel plan as you go along. I'll maybe give a bit of an example of Zambia. We have our 8th National Development Plan. So that is our 5-year plan for, our various key priority areas. That's something you focus on, and that's kind of your roadmap, if you will. Then you have crises that come up. So you still now have to plug those holes while still executing your plan, while also keeping in mind, and this is from a continental perspective, our commitments to the Africa Agenda 2063. So there is a broader plan, at least from a continental perspective. So I think we have to operate and continue operating on multiple fronts in order the day is something that's palatable and desirable by everybody in the country, no matter what side of the fence you're on.
I think it's, listening to both of you speak about the very real challenges of government, it strikes me more and more these days how hard it is to be a politician, how hard it is to run a country and to make all these decisions. And I mean, the era of polycrisis is an understatement. I think from a Global Energy Alliance perspective, we're thinking about, but that it cannot just be the responsibility of government to deliver them. So back to why I think you asked me here. So I'm here to speak about Mission 300. Mission 300 is one of those plans. It is a very deliberately short plan. I don't think I said this before. It's a plan, so if there are 600 million unelectrified people across the continent, that is an extraordinary waste. It's criminal. And in my former life, I worked for UNICEF on youth entrepreneurship, largely in Africa. I have seen the talent of that demographic, those young people that are coming through in the continent. Without electricity, that is going to go to waste.
Maybe if I can just add just a little bit, because one thing that came out, and your comments prompted it, is that golden thread are the people. And we found success in that even in Zambia with some of our energy projects, particularly the renewables going out into the community, where you engage the people on the ground to say this is coming, train people in local communities who can get the jobs to help maintain these systems, in rule. Because then if the next government comes in and says no, they'll say no, this is our project. So I think, and that's one of the successes that we found, currently is working much more closely with communities to get them involved, because it's that buy-in and ownership. And once you have the ownership from the people, it's up to the representatives, those who...
Thank you, Sulaiman. I know you've offered me the mic first, and I thought ladies first, but that's the downside. I have three charismatic ladies who can talk, so I'm looking at Joy and the lovely time cup. I'm not gonna get squeezed on time. I can talk too, and I'm very passionate. Now, I think your question is very valid, and it is not a coincidence that there are 8 billion plus people on the planet. There are only a couple of thousand members of government worldwide in about 200 countries, so a couple of thousand. So it's not an easy one, having been one of them. The biggest challenge is really to deal with the day-to-day requirements, short-term challenges, left, right, and center. And I did not have only renewable energy as a portfolio. I had another 4. while sticking to the long-term strategic matters, because yes, I mean there are the key necessities for people, the Maslow requirements, needs, food, etc. But today, all these gadgets require energy, and this is where Africa and countries like